Recently, one of my videos, I got a really great comment. I like your characters and line work and all that, but your coloring is next level. That's a huge compliment for me. There is a reason why my colors have gotten much better recently. I've been consulting with a pro. This is Kurt Michael Russell. You may have come across his YouTube channel in the past, or maybe you've seen his site, comiccolor.com. He's got a bunch of comic coloring resources, including his Clip Studio Paint course on how to color with comics. He was kind enough to give me a discount code for you guys down below in the description.
I'm usually third in the process of making the comic book. You got a guy writing it, you got a guy drawing it, me coloring, and then after me it gets sent to a letterer.
So what I did is took one of the early pages from one of my comics and I sent it over to him and said, go nuts, color this. As I was starting to color this thing, my colors were okay, but I was having some problems. Whenever I added spot colors, they just didn't fit with the overall theme, or they distracted from the main characters and the thing I was trying to focus on. And so I tried to pick colors kind of in the same area, and then things started turning monochromatic. I needed some help to add these bursts of color throughout the comic. And I want to know, how would a pro approach this kind of work? And after we worked together via email a little bit, I'd bring him on, we'd have a conversation, and we'd talk about it. Quick note, this is my first time doing an interview type thing like this, and when I recorded the Zoom conversation, one thing I hadn't considered is I had his screen cap on big the entire time. So Kurt is just like a little square in the corner. I'm sorry about that. So to start out, I took my file, had all the layers in it, all my inks broken down, everything set up, ready to go. Turns out I didn't need that. He's used to just getting one file, flat file with all the inks.
I usually just get one layer, just the inks.
Now, what surprised me the most as we started to talk about how he was going to tackle this was how often he would refer back to the story, or specifically thought about the storytelling and what we were trying to communicate with the comics, more than just, hey, what color is this and what color is that?
I also usually get a script with it, so I know beforehand. We actually, I had a few questions for you about, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? That's probably the most common question that I ask.
The time of day and understanding the atmosphere of the scene is really important. In my case, this is an underground city. It's not actually underground. It's just there's so much city above that not much natural light gets in from overhead.
And changing from night to day is not something that's easy to do with sliders. It's completely different tone, different feel,
Now, I did not give him a script, and I didn't realize that was a mistake. This left a really big hole for him, which required him to ask me a lot of questions and make a lot of assumptions that he probably wouldn't have if he did have that script.
Typically, knowing sort of where you are in the story, are these characters walking into the pizza place because they're hungry? Are they, in this case, I think I saw something about bounty hunting or something. So I'm like, are they walking into a dangerous situation? It's like that mood is really important for me to know before I ever, start putting any colors down.
I also learned that in the comics industry, there's another person involved with the coloring of a comic beyond just the colorist.
So I actually have what they call in my business a flatter, which is a bit of a sort of an assistant. But the first thing that they will do for me is what we call flats, and just the flatting process. Now, this is actually not a creative part of the process at all. These are not the base colors, these are just colors. They might be completely random. I mean, my flatter will sometimes make things, skin tones or whatever, but it's entirely so that I can come in here with my magic wand tool and, very quickly select all of these things and change the colors to what I want them to be.
This is probably a good place to ask the question, what is the biggest mistake you see people making when they're just starting to color comics?
It's an easy one. It's just too much local color. And what I mean by that is not using color to make choices. The superhero's costume is blue and red. The sky is blue, the grass is green, and they do this for the entirety of the book. You're not making choices. As a colorist, I sort of equate it. It's not quite the same thing, but I like to call myself sort of the cinematographer of the book. You know what I mean? There's so much to be done with lighting and framing and story and some of the things we were talking about, clarifying locations, mood, atmosphere. There are so many choices that a colorist needs to be making. And if you're only going through the book and doing a color by numbers sort of approach where every single thing is colored the same way on every single page, you know. Or, I get a question a lot about skin tone. It's like, well, what skin tone should I use? Well, it's like, where are they? Like I've got an old video where it's like I literally have a skin tone from every color in the rainbow in one book,
Oh,
because
wow.
it's just that's how that's how the environments were. They're very colorful environments, and so our skin easily picks up the color of the environment, and
Fortunately, I was already thinking along those lines. I was just dropping in colors. I was trying not to saturate them too hard. I was trying to kind of collect them into things like, okay, these are going to be my cool colors. These are going to be my warm colors. And I knew, hey, if you're in a dark room, something bright red is going to be much more subdued and darker. But then he hit me with this one technique that made my life doing this comic so much easier.
so the next thing I did is I put a layer in color mode and just sort of tinted everything in the background to sort of tie it all together. And what that also does by pulling it all sort of toward blue is it creates a very simple visual pattern of blue-ish colors, so that her skin tones that are very warm in the corner over there kind of stand out, even though they're in the corner. Sort of a trick I use a lot.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I started doing it a lot, all the time, across all my pages. But this created another problem. Some of my pages were really starting to get monochromatic. I had gone too far. So my next step for him was to ask, okay, now that I've established that mood, that I've established that color on some of these pages, how can I go in with like bright splashes of color and break up some of that monotony? So he went in with some different layers, special effects, and just started dropping in colors to try different things.
This layer, I went in and again, I don't think I didn't have the full script. I saw some bounty hunting. I'm like, maybe they're going after somebody, so this is a deep dark alley they're headed toward, or something, But I threw that in there as a separate layer just so I could again easily flip it on and off. If you're like, why'd you do that? There's no point in, okay, we can turn that off. If all else fails, add a layer. That's my motto. So a couple of shadows, and again, I'll kind of, there's, I think the rest of that was another panels. And then there's just a couple of I think some special effects and things on some of the other panels. And but that was basically it.
I want to go to the bottom panel because this one is interesting to me.
Hmm.
Because when we talked about adding color, like how are we going to add a big splash of color, this one
Okay.
was cool because you didn't have the script, but you still picked up on two important things here. One is probably easy because the girl looks alarmed. But the second thing was that the thing on the left, what is a blueprint? I meant for it to be a blueprint. I did not tell you it was a blueprint, but you still figured it out. If you've seen some of my recent videos, some of the reviews I've been doing the iPad and the most recent Galaxy Tab S6 FE, you've probably seen some of these pages already. I've been sharing them as I've been working on this video. So you've seen some of the output that I've already created here. Some of the panels still need more help. I want to go back and tweak them a little bit, but some other panels here and there, especially where I've started dropping in some of these spot colors in these ways, I really love how they're turning out. And I really love how some of those colors can really help break up the story and attract attention to like some key moments. And that's one thing that Kurt just kept hitting on over and over and over again, is the idea of storytelling, being a director, using the colors to communicate something to you. And hopefully that is maybe not something you could see just looking at one page or a few panels of my comics, but when you read it, hopefully that comes through.
One of my old favorite artists, Todd McFarlane, drawing Spider-Man 100 years ago, it feels like he's known for his bombastic panels, where Spider-Man's halfway climbing out of the panels and you think he's going to hit you in the face while you're reading it. Those pages only work because he sets you up with sort of a normal page, sort of a normal page, sort of a normal page, not panels, pages, panels, panels. And then all of a sudden he would hit you with this huge splash. And the contrast of that, the contrast of the difference in the page from the other pages, that's kind of like the big macro use of contrast on the other end. It's not just about creating focal points in art, but I mean, we don't have happiness in life without the down moments. And so contrast is life. Contrast is everything.
If you're a member of this channel, you can watch the entirety of this interview. Also, you could subscribe to Kurt's Patreon. He's going to have the same interview there as well. Also, don't forget his discount code down below for learning how to color comics in Clip Studio Paint, which is the tool he uses all the time and the tool that you saw on the screen throughout this video. A lot of the tips and techniques that he talks about goes into way more depth than we went into here. In fact, some of the little nuance and detail about how he picks colors and holds on to little spaces and uses reference layers, we didn't even have the chance to go into in this video, but he does in his course. So it's not just, hey, this is a great way to color, but it's also really great time-saving techniques too. I'm trying a new format here, this whole interview thing. Now, obviously, I've got some things to clean up, try again, but I'm kind of curious, what do you think about this format for a video? Should I do more of this? Are there some people that I should just seek out some information that you guys would like to know here on the channel? How can I improve it other than making the guests' faces larger in the video? Let me know. And thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.